this to checkbox and hit save. And now when we click on it, it's still not hidden. Let me do a refresh. What am I doing wrong? Let's see. Checkbox. Oh, that's the span. My apologies. Let me bring this back. I did have a oh, we don't have a class on here. Class checkbox. There we go. There we go. So now it's hidden. Perfect. That's what I want. Like, why is this opacity thing not working? Okay. So now we can grab the checkbox container, add a position relative to this. So this is the actual, like a fake div that we make it look like a checkbox. So we'll add a height to it of 1 rem, a width to it of 1 rem, just like that. And we'll add a border radius, 3 pixels to it. Okay? Hit save. Cool. So that's our little invisible checkbox container. Now we'll grab both checkmark and checkbox. We're going to add a position absolute to this. All right, so we're going to position it relative to this checkbox container. Add a bottom of 0, left of 0, a width of 100%, and a height of 100%. Let's hit save on that. And I'm also going to add a border of 2 pixels solid, and we'll use that nice gray color that we found. Oops, that's the wrong button. C5, 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 and hit save. So there we go. That's what we have right there. Perfect. So again, if we take a look at this, we just have an empty checkbox container basically, and we took the check mark, which is an empty span, and a checkbox, and the checkbox input, and we put it right on top of each other. Okay, that's all we've done. Okay, let me go back here to the codes. There we go. Now we're going to grab the checkbox fill, which is this thing that's going to come on top of it. That whoop, like that, filling it up. So what we need to do there is just grab the checkbox. I cannot type. Checkbox fill. Add a position absolute to it. Again, we're going to place it relative to this container again. We'll add a nice background color to it. So we'll do, keep pressing this button. We'll do that 6 tree again. I'm going to do width of 100% and height of 100%. So it takes up basically the size of the container. And hit save. Let's see. So that's what we made, that little checkbox that's going to be filled up. What I want to do is push it down by 100% like that, because that's going to come on top of it like that. Now I don't want it to show up now. So what we can do is add an overflow hidden to the checkbox container. So we can go up here, add an overflow hidden. Hit save. Let's take a look. And there we go. Look at that. It's all nice and hidden. Perfect. Let's see what else we need to do. So that's all sorted. We have our checkbox fill done. And then we just need the tick mark. So we'll grab the tick mark, add a position absolute. We'll do a top 50%, left 50%, and a big Z index so we can see it. I'll do 2. Okay, still cannot see it. Let's see where, oh, it's right there. Is that gonna show up? No, it's not gonna show up. Oh, it's because we have overflow hidden on top of that. Okay, so what we can do is, it's there, you can barely see it, but what I want to do is perfectly position it in the middle. So we can use that transform, translate, minus 50%, minus 50%. Okay, so it's right there in the middle. Now you can see it. It's still white colored. I guess if I go here on top of it, I can change it for you to see it better. Let's see, where is it? Form, body, element style. fill red. All right, so it's there. Is this the tick mark? Yeah. What I'm gonna do is also scale it down a little bit. So scale 0.6. Yep, 0.6, and hit save. Okay, perfect. Ooh, this is a longer video, isn't it? I guess I can show you if I just remove the top and width here, the top 100%, and go over back here. There you go, you can really see it now. So it's right on top there. Perfect. And I added the fill red to it, which actually we don't need, but there it is. All right, if it's too big, just scale it down a little bit more. If it's fine, then just leave it like that. Okay, I'll add the top 100% back here. Perfect. Finally, let's see what else do we need to do here. Let's go back. We'll do the button. So let's go back here. Well, we can do down here, button. We'll just add some styling to it, some basic styling. So let's do a font family of Poppins, sans serif. We'll do a font weight 500, font size of 0.6. Okay, we'll do a background color of that blue. Color is going to be white. Add a small border radius to it. 0.2 rem, that's going to look fine. Border style, we'll say none, get rid of the border. Add a bit of padding to it, 0.5 rem, 2.5 rem. Cursor pointer. Again, this is kind of boring stuff just to make a button look nice pretty much. We'll add a bit of margin top of 1 rem. And that should be it. Lovely. Perfect. So there we go. That's what we have right now. Can we do an align self? Let's see, align self, flex start, like that to make it small. Yeah, that looks good to me. Perfect. So that's looking great. Let's see here. What else do we need to do? We'll have another something pop here after we submit the form, but we'll do that a bit later. So that's going to be the basic styling. If we do need anything else, like, I don't know, we'll see. We'll just quickly jump back and add anything that we need. Okay, I'm going to leave it because it's a 20-minute video already. So I'll see you in the next part. Bye-bye. Let's bring the elasticness to the input. So that's what we're going to do in this episode. We're going to make the inputs elastic. Ugh, that was tough to say. I really wanted to make this effect because I always saw it used in like video editing. You know, people would make this nice, but I couldn't find examples using HTML and CSS or JavaScript on the internet that were not too complicated. So with GSAP, I'm going to show you a cool way that you can achieve elastic inputs using just a simple easing function. Okay, so let's head over to our JavaScript and get going. So what I'm going to do first of all is create a variable, so containers. And this basically represents each input container. All right, so with the line, with the placeholder, and with the input. So document, dot query selector, all. So we're going to select all the containers, dot input container, like that. Perfect. Let me make sure I'm recording this video because I did it once before where I did half an hour and I did not save it. Good. Okay, next up, I'm just going to select the form, document, dot query selector. So this one is a normal query selector, so we're not going to do all, just query selector. And finally, we'll create a timeline. So const TL equal to gsap.timeline. And in here, I'm going to do curly brackets, default, curly bracket again, duration 1 second. Okay, so I'm just going to set the default duration to all my animations. Okay, now we're going to mess around with the line. So here's the thing. I'm going to show you this at the end of the chapter, but I do want to give you a general idea of what's going on. So here is Figma. So essentially what I did, so that SVG that we have there, that elastic SVG, this is all it is. Let me just go here, is essentially I just went here and drew a line like this. I drew a line, holding shift, let go. Okay, let me zoom in here. And I took this line, I flattened it to make it the path. All right, because if it's not, then SVG is going to recognize it as a line. But if it's a path, what we can do now is here, I can just double click it and click once to add a point to it. All right. And now that I have a point, I can bend it up and down. Now let me go back to how it was before. And I can also add a curve to it. So if I go over to this tool right here, I can just drag this and holding shift to keep it straight, drag this all the way like that. And now if I bring it down, whoops, let me go back. So after I drag it out like that, I'll actually go back to this tool to grab that middle point. I can move it down and up like that. Okay, so what I did is I left it like this, right-clicked, and did copy as SVG. Copy as SVG, and look, if I paste it, it's going to look exactly the same as this code. Paste, right? Give or take, it's the same thing. I just added a class of line SVG here, but it looks just about the same. Perfect. So that's what I did. And then to get so that's the path here and basically the position of our line. And then what I did was I double clicked on it, dragged it down a little bit like that, holding shift to keep it straight. And then I did a copy SVG again. Copy as SVG. And what I did here, paste it in again, is I just took this path here and commented it out up here. So that's going to be our starting position, this path, and this is going to be our ending position. So it being bent down. Okay. So that's what we're going to paste in here. We're going to do const start and set it equal to, I said that I'm going to explain this at the end of the video, but I just did the whole thing anyway. So the const start here of the line is going to be this. So I'm going to just copy this over. Let me go over here like that and do a copy. I'm going to paste it here. Let me remove the end ticks here like that. That's the start. And then I'm also going to have an end. So that's going to be the bent down version of it. This here. So copy that over. I'm going to add quotation marks and paste it and hit save. All right, there we go. So now let's get the elastic effect going. So I'm just going to add a little comment there. So what we're going to do is we're going to loop over. We don't need this anymore. Let me open this up. We're going to loop over each of these containers, 1, 2, and 3. All right. And we're going to loop over and we're going to check if that input is focused. So as you can see, when that border comes on, the outline comes on, it means it's focused. So if it's focused, do the bouncing effect. Okay. So containers dot for each. So for each container like that, we're going to run an arrow function here with curly brackets. Okay. And now for each input that we click on, we need to add an event listener. So check if that input is focused. Now that's why we're looping over them, because now in here, we can just grab the input. So I can say const input equal to container.query selector. So you can do query selectors like this as well on that specific container that we're looping over. So make sure you're grabbing each input from each container. We can do the same with the line as well. Const line container.query selector. I'm going to do elastic line and also the placeholder text container.query selector placeholder. All right, so we have access to each individual one in here. So now what I'm going to do is say input dot add event listener on click run an arrow function. Okay, so here I'm going to check if the input has a value on it. So if it already has some text on it, I don't want to run the animation, only if the input's empty. So I'm going to say if input.value like that. So this means that if it doesn't have any value, then run the animation. All right, so this is a check to see if there is any text in the input. All right, so in here, what we're going to do is do a TL from to, so just the normal animation. And what I want to do is grab the line. So we have access to that specific line that we click on. All right, because we're selecting it in here. Because if we do like a normal line like this, it would just grab all the lines because they're named the same way. So that's why when we're doing this for each, we can specifically select that specific container's line. So line, and now to actually animate that path, what you can do here is add some curly brackets like you'd normally do and say attr for attribute. And in here, you can do another curly bracket and say D. And now that's going to be the start. So our starting position here that we selected, start. So this is our from, and then we're going to do to. So from attribute D start to attribute D end. All right, so that's going to animate the path for us. And finally here, I'm just going to add an easing to it. I'm going to do, actually it's going to be here. Ease, we're going to do a power2.ease out. That's going to look nice. I'm also going to change the duration to this, duration to 0.75 seconds. All right, that's it. So that's all you need to do. So let's take a look now if it works. Let's go back here. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. Let me pop this open for you. So click. Now there's a couple of issues. So the outline here is hiding the line. So we cannot see it. So to fix that, let's go here to style.css and find the input. So this one here. And let me just think a bit, how was the actual thing to get rid of that outline? So we can do outline of none. Hit save and let's take a look. So click and look at that, it goes down, but it gets hidden because there's overflow hidden there on the path. So that specifically is an SVG issue. So if your path leaves, remember the path is inside the SVG if we take a look here. So as you can see, we have the path there. This is the SVG and there's our path, right? So if the path leaves the SVG, it gets hidden. So what we need to do is select the SVG and add an overflow of hidden, and then we can see it. Doesn't matter if it leaves that specific container. So let's go back to our code and find the line SVG here, and we'll just add an overflow of visible. Let's make the opacity a bit less as well, 0.8. Hit save to make it look a bit fancier. And there we go. So there it is. Now it works. So click and whoop, it bends down like that. How nice. Now, as you can see, it bends down, but we have this weird issue of if I click on this one, that stays bent down. Why? Because we're doing it on click. So if I go back here, you're going to see that we're doing it on click. If I change it to focus, no two elements can be focused at the same time. So now if I click on this and click on this, well, actually you still cannot see it because we do need to revert the animation. You're going to see that when it comes to the label, it's going to animate back once it's not focused anymore. Okay, so let's just make it bounce back. So now it just moves down. So in this if statement now, after this first line of TL, we're going to add another one. We're going to say TL2. We're going to grab that line again. We're going to do another attribute like this. So curly brackets, attr, the start. So move it back to the start. So we bend it down and then we want to move it right back up. Okay. Now let me add a comma here. Like that. The start. Let's just keep it like this, just so you can see what's going on. So boom, boom, and it just moves back. Now it doesn't have any bounciness or anything. So this is where we can use the easings. So GSAP ease. So let's go here. We're going to use elastic. So let's go to elastic and we can modify this to make it a bit nicer. So if we run this, it looks like that. Now, if we increase the first property here, so this one here, we put it to 2, it's going to give a bigger bounce. If we do 3, it's going to give an even bigger bounce. Boom. And this one here, the 0.3, gives us the number of bounces. So if I put this to 1, it's going to be just 1 and it's going to smoothly come back. If I do 0.4, it's going to do quite a few. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so the one I found that works really nice is 3 here and then 0.5 here. I feel like that's quite nice looking. So let me copy paste this over. Actually, let's just write it out here. So I'll add a comma, just say ease. And I'll say elastic dot out 3, 0.5 and hit save. Let's take a look. Go back here. Boop, boom. New, boom. That looks really cool, doesn't it? Let me zoom in here for you. Boom. Now I want it to go a bit faster, so I don't want that big of a delay. So what I can do here is just at the end of this, I can add a comma, add the curly brackets here, and just say less than sign 50%. So run this animation 50% whilst this runs. So this lasts for 0.75, right? So halfway through this, start running this. There we go. So it blends it a bit nicely together. So if I change this to click, let me see if this does it now. So as you can see, if I click on it, and then I can still click on it, and I don't want that because maybe I'm typing and I want to click, and then it's going to do the bounce. So if I change this to focus, it's already focused, so it's not going to run it again. See? So that's quite nice. So you only get it once. And there we go. That's how we get our little bounce effect. How simple is that? You just need the paths and just a nice easing, and you get this very, very cool elastic effect. Feel free to experiment with this. You can get some quite wacky ones, but this is subtle and nice in my opinion. So I'm going to stick to this. Okay, let's go. Alrighty, next up we're gonna take a look on how to make the placeholder jump up right here in this small little corner. Okay, so let's get the code back up here on the screen. So for that, let's just go here. So we have our input check, and right after this whole debacle here, let's see here, after this TL, we're gonna hit enter. I'm gonna say placeholder shift. Okay, so here we're going to do a TL2. We're going to grab the placeholder. Again, we're selecting this up here, so we have access to it. Placeholder, comma. I'm going to do a top -15, so that's going to move it up a little bit. I'm going to keep the left position at 0. I'm just going to scale it a bit down, so scale it to 0.7. I'm going to also add the duration to this. Duration of 0.5. I'm going to add an easing of power2.ease out and hit save. Okay, so that's it. Just move it up a little bit basically and scale it down. And that's going to be it. So let's take a look how it looks. So let me open up the Chrome. Here we go. So click and then whoop, it goes up. Now, why does it go up there and not here? Because we specifically said, hey, do left 0. So it should stay on the left side. Well, it's basically how transforms are happening. So when you're scaling something down or rotating something, it's always going to do it from the middle point. So we need to modify the origin of where it animates from. So it's a super easy fix. All we have to do is go over to style.css. Let me look for it. It's going to be our placeholder text. Let's find the placeholder text. Where are you, Mr. Placeholder? Here. So again, all we need to do is change the transform origin to left. And that's it. And hit save. So let's go back here. Let's open up Chrome and see how it does. Look at that. Boop. All right, so it starts scaling to the left side of the text, so where the Y is. So it scales in that direction and not on the right or the middle. All right, so that's it. That's a super easy fix. Now, one thing I don't like is the timing on these. So when I click it, boop, after it goes up. So I want it kind of to time it with the bounce. So when the bounce, it looks like it's going to push it up basically. So let's see, let's go back here. I want to basically do a little delay. So let's try add a comma here after the curly bracket. Let's do 15% and see how that looks. There we go. Boom. So it looks like we're bouncing it up. That looks really cool. I'm happy with that. Okay, so that's gonna be it. This is a short one, quite simple to do. Next up, what we're gonna do is after we click off of this, I want this to revert back to its original position. All right. Now, if it has text in it, then I don't want it to come back down. So that's what we're going to fix. Also, whilst we're at it now, let's make this text a bit smaller and a bit more stylized. We'll add that gray color to it to kind of match, because it looks quite weird right now. It looks a bit out of place. So let me open this back up. Hide that, go over to style.css, and on the input, we'll just add a color of gray. So we can use this gray color here and just change the font size to something like 0.7. There we go. So that looks much nicer now. Cool. All right. See you in the next video, not chapter. Damn it. Okay, so let's get that reset up and going. So it's going to be quite simple. Let's go over to our app.js right here. And let's see where we need to add this code. 1 second. Just want to make sure I get the correct position of it. So we have our focus here. Okay, and then we have our container here. So let's see, do I still want it in that container? So we'll do it outside. We don't need to be in this whole section here. So on the outside here, we're going to say revert back if it's not focused. Okay. So I'm going to do a similar thing. I'm going to add an event listener on the form. I'm going to say click. Like that. We don't need the event actually, so we can just run an arrow function. I'm going to do this whole looping thing again. So we can pretty much just kind of copy paste it over. So I'm going to do a containers dot for each container. Run an arrow function here. I'm going to copy over these three. Copy, paste it down here, add the C because I missed it. And here what I want to do is basically check if our document.activeElement does not equal to our input. So if we have the input selected, that's all fine and dandy. But if we don't, if it's not an input, then revert back. All right, so open this up. I also want to check if it has any value in it. So if the input has value, then don't run the animation. don't revert back to its original state. Okay, don't bring the placeholder on top of the text because we already have information in there. So we can just do if input.value. So if it's empty, then revert back. If it's not, then don't. Okay, so that's it. So all we need to do is do a gsap to, we'll grab the placeholder, comma, and we'll do a top 0, comma, left 0, and we'll scale it back up. Scale to 1. Duration, we're going to put 0.5. We're going to add that power easing to it. So ease power 2.ease out. Okay, and that's going to be it. So let's take a look. Oops, here. So if we click on it, boop, jumps up. If we click on something else, so if the active element is not an input, revert it back. And we also had that if statement, if the input value is nothing, also revert back. However, if we do have a value, then it doesn't. It stays right there. So there we go. How about that? That was quite simple and fun, wasn't it? I agree. Okay, let's move on to the next episode, shall we? Fade out effect.